The dust of the prairie carried whispers, and among them was always the name of the woman no one wanted. Mara. Folk said she was too scarred by life, too burdened by mistakes that weren't all her own, and too rough around the edges for any decent man to take as his wife. She walked through town with her chin tucked low, avoiding eyes that burned with judgment, her hands calloused from endless work at the boarding house where she barely earned her keep. But in that same town was a man who never cared for gossip, a cowboy named Caleb, tall and sun-browned, with a steady gaze and hands that had built more than fences. They had built trust in a world that so often broke it. Caleb had seen Mara when no one else bothered to look. He saw the way her spirit clung to hope even in silence, the way she still helped an old widow cross the dusty road though her own shoes were falling apart, the way her eyes held storms in strength. And so when the whispers grew louder, when the town laughed at the very idea of someone standing by her side, Caleb did not laugh. He asked her hand. Mara had stared at him in disbelief, thinking it a cruel joke. But his eyes told her otherwise, eyes that said, "You are worth building a life with." Their wedding was small, hardly attended, with only a few friends who believed in mercy. But Caleb didn't need a crowd. He needed her. He took her to his land, a bare patch of earth with only a small shack, and told her, "This is where we'll start, Mara. And I'll build us more than walls. I'll build us a place where the sun greets us first thing in the morning." True to his word, day by day, with sweat dripping down his back and blisters on his palms, he worked. Mara cooked for him, carried water, and sometimes hammered nails herself, laughing for the first time in years when she hit her thumb and he teased her gently about it. Neighbors shook their heads, saying the woman wasn't worth the effort. But Caleb only smiled and kept on building, because he knew that worth wasn't measured by gossip, but by love's quiet resilience. Slowly the frame of a home rose, then the walls, then the roof, until one morning, as the sun spilled its first golden light over the horizon, it poured through the open windows of a house that stood proud and new. Caleb had built it facing east, just as he promised, so Mara could wake each day to light instead of shadow, to warmth instead of cold memory. When she stood in the doorway of that house, her hands trembling against the wood Caleb had smoothed with care, tears ran down her cheeks, not from sorrow, but from finally belonging somewhere, finally being chosen, finally being seen as more than whispers. "No one else would touch me," she said softly, "but you built me a place where the morning starts fresh." Caleb wrapped his arms around her and said, "I didn't just build you a house, Mara, I built us a life, and the sun will always rise for us." From that day forward, Mara walked into town differently, not with her chin down, but with her head high, for she had a man who had built her a home against the world's doubts, a man who had shown her that love doesn't ask if someone is good enough. It simply gives and grows. Their porch became a place where neighbors would quietly wander, ashamed of the things they had once said, because they could see for themselves how the cowboy's choice turned into beauty, how a woman once dismissed had become the heart of a home. And Mara, with every sunrise through her eastern window, found strength to smile, knowing that while others had turned away, one man had stayed, and that made all the difference. Friends, if this story touched you, remember this. Real love doesn't chase perfection. It builds something stronger out of broken pieces. It faces the sunrise no matter how long the night has been. If you believe in love like Caleb's, the kind that sees worth where the world sees none, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, because more stories of hope, courage, and true love are waiting just for you, and I promise you won't want to miss the next one. The first nights in their new home were quiet, filled with the creak of fresh wood settling and the sound of crickets singing in the fields. Mara often lay awake, listening to Caleb's steady breathing beside her, still half afraid that she would wake to find it all gone. Just another dream stolen by dawn. But every morning, as the first light of the sun spilled through their eastern windows, Caleb would be there, already up, already smiling, handing her a cup of coffee with hands, roughened by work but gentle enough to remind her she was safe. That porch he had built became their place of promise. Each sunrise, they sat side by side, watching the horizon glow gold, reminding Mara that every day was a new chance to live beyond the whispers of her past. Neighbors began to visit, curious at first, then quietly ashamed, as they saw laughter echoing from that little house, saw Caleb and Mara planting flowers along the walkway, saw how love had softened her weary eyes into something radiant. For Mara, the mornings became more than just light. They were proof that she was no longer unwanted, proof that someone had seen her worth when no one else dared. One morning she turned to Caleb with tears brimming and whispered, "I don't know why you chose me." He pulled her close and answered, "Because I wasn't choosing what others saw, Mara. I was choosing the woman I knew you could be." And in that moment, as the sun rose higher, Mara finally let herself believe not only in Caleb's love, but in the life they were building, brick by brick, sunrise by sunrise.